We are in 2012 where Loki gets arrested by the Avengers, but because of what happened in Endgame, Loki was able to escape the arrest. Loki discovers himself in Mongolia's Gobi Desert. Soon after, soldiers who identify as the Time Variant Authority, also known as the TVA, arrived. They are prepared to rewrite history, but B-15 beats Loki, causing him to slow down and arrest him. While Loki is placed in an elevator with a 4-armed robot, the Tesseract is taken away. After his clothes fall off, Loki is brought down to sign papers for everything he has ever said. The creation of the TVA was a result of a multiversal war that once happened. The timekeepers were able to put an end to the war between the competing timelines by creating a sacred timeline. These variants are those that stray from their intended course, and the TVA is there to turn back time to where it belongs. We were brought to France in 1549. A young child flees in terror, but she warns the TVA, particularly Mobius, that the devil is to blame for their misfortune. In the middle of their conversation, a man enters from a gateway and offers them a file on Loki. When Loki is put on trial, he raises several valid points. He mentions the Avengers, how they travel back in time to alter the timeline, while being questioned about the sacred timeline. It appears that the Avengers changing history was supposed to happen, so they receive a free pass, but Loki's departure from the timeline was not. However, he wouldn't have been allowed to leave if it weren't for the Avengers, so there is a small paradox there. Loki is judged guilty, and he is about to be erased, but Mobius appears and saves his life. Loki, however, is not in the mood to bargain, and mocks the idea of the TVA being in command. Morbius admits that his mission is to find harmful variants, and then shows Loki a montage of his greatest hits. Mobius stops the random questions and returns to questioning Loki's life, which is the main topic of this discussion. Even examples of the future where his mother has been killed because of his action are revealed to Loki. This is what's meant to happen, with a focus on Loki's tendency to cause trouble and harm so that the others might be their best selves. Loki manages to escape while Mobius is preoccupied using the teleporter to locate the desk clerk named Casey. This man is stupid and doesn't appear to have ever heard of a fish. The Infinity Stones are also hidden in his drawers with him. Loki worries whether the TVA is the universe's greatest power while holding the Tesseract. Loki watches his death at the hands of Thanos as he returns to the room he began in with Mobius. Of course, this marks the end of his timeline. Finally, Mobius appears and reveals the true purpose of their use of Loki. As it turns out, they've been monitoring another Loki variant. Then we quickly go to 1858 in Oklahoma, where the TVA arrives to look for their objective. The hooded figure throws a light to the field and stands by until everything burns and takes the reset charge. 1985 in Wisconsin, a festival is being held. The TVA shows up at the festival and detects a variant signal. They are led to a tent and the speakerphone goes off, making them alerted. One of the TVA agents, C-20, gets mind controlled and starts attacking the other agents until she faints. The last standing agent tries to attack the variant, but is killed instead. The variant takes a tempad and some reset charges. The variant uses the tempad to time travel somewhere, while dragging C-20 along. At the TVA, Miss Minute is quizzing Loki until Morbius shows up to get Loki to gear up. B-15 briefs everyone about the variant situation, while Morbius tells everyone about the abilities of the Loki variants. Loki doesn't like how Morbius describes one of his abilities, so he corrects him on what it is. They will split into two groups to capture the variant, and if Loki can assist in capturing the variant, there's a chance he could talk with the timekeepers. The agents scan the area after the battle to set a reset charge and leave. Before they do leave, Loki has a theory but wants reassurance that once the job is done, he won't get erased. Morbius noticed that Loki is lying about the variant being outside ready for an ambush, so they reset the timeline. Morbius reports back to Ravana and she grills him for messing up the mission because of Loki, but he argues that he learned something about this Loki, so all they have to do is wait until the variant messes up. She gives him one last chance with Loki, otherwise he'll be gone. When Mobius leaves the room, Loki tries to make excuses for botching the mission, and they debate who is the better Loki. So Mobius tasks Loki with researching the variant. Loki goes to the front desk after some case files and asks for the files on the creation of the TVA, but these files were classified info. So he asks what he can see, and she gives Loki some files on the variant case. Loki goes through the files to find the destruction of Asgard's event and gets emotional about it, but notices zero variant energy detected. So he packs his things to report them back to Mobius. Loki theorizes that the variant is hiding in an apocalypse area that is about to be destroyed because they can do whatever they want before the place gets destroyed, and they won't be detected. Loki tries to get Mobius to test the theory with him, and he finally relents to it. They go to Italy in 79 AD to test the theory, and Loki causes a disturbance in the street market. Then the volcano erupts and they find out that they can't detect any variant energy from the device. So they go back to start researching how much events like that occur. When they take a break, Loki asks Mobius why he has a picture of a jet ski and he explains why he likes it. They talk about the timeline and what will happen once everything is all good, but Mobius figured out something, so he goes off. Mobius looks for the evidence the variant left behind at an old crime scene. He tried to get the candy bar Kablooey checked out, but nothing came out of it, but now they might know where the variant is hiding. So they search for when Kablooey was sold and cross-reference every apocalyptic event to find where they are hiding. Loki finds the apocalyptic event that matches in Alabama 2050. Mobius brings this to Ravonna to get a task force to check out the potential hiding spot. Ravonna agrees after Mobius begs for it, but if it doesn't work out, whip to Mobius' job. Mobius leaves telling Loki the good news while they head out. B-15 briefs the task force about the superstore layout, and if they see the variant, they should erase them. They go to the superstore and split up into two groups. Loki is with B-15 and Mobius is with D-90's group, because this is B-15's field operation. Mobius freaks out, but Loki calms him down and follows B-15. The variant sees them on the CCTV and starts a timer. Loki and B-15 walks down a flickering room till they hear some noise. They encounter a man trying to buy some plants because it was discounted. The man grabs B-15's hand and a green glow goes to B-15. The man faints and the variant uses B-15's body to talk with Loki. They continue to talk until a man asks if they're looking for the shelter and the variant takes over his body. Loki tells the variant that he wants to take over the TVA, but he wants the variant to help him. The variant declines the offer to continue setting up the reset charges. D-90 and Mobius argues about D-90's behavior toward the people until an agent found C-20. They try to ask her questions, but she keeps on repeating it's real, until she tells them she gave the timekeepers' location away. D-90 calls B-15 and she finally wakes up. The variant starts beating Loki till he starts fighting back. B-15 groups up with the rest of them looking for Loki and the variant, while the variant continues to set the charges. Before the charges go off, the variant shows herself to Loki. The reset charges go off together and are sent to random locations to break the timeline. The variant and Loki goes through a portal to the TVA and the variant starts attacking the TVA agents. Loki catches up to the variant and they start fighting. Ravonna shows up to erase both of them, but Loki portals them both out of the situation. They fight for the tempad, but it was out of battery, so the variant couldn't portal out of there. The variant refuses to be called a Loki, but is forced to work together because the planet is about to be destroyed, so they must escape the planet. While looking for a power source, the variant calls herself Sylphie, and they talk about what their plans were until they reach an abandoned town. The tempad needs a massive power source, so that neon light wouldn't have worked. There is only one woman left in town, and she is not at all happy to see them. She blasted both of them out of her home before telling them that every person on the planet has already boarded the evacuation ship. They can only reach the ship by traveling on a train to get there. Loki and Sylvie made the decision to go undercover by dressing in disguise as they travel on the train. On the train, they talked about Loki's mother and then their younger selves. A server gave them champagne and Loki took both of them because Sylvie didn't want any. Then they chatted about love while Loki is sipping on the champagne. Loki decides to start singing and dancing on the carriage after becoming drunk to add some spice to the situation. Eventually, the guards show up to arrest him because he didn't have a ticket. With Loki and Sylvie in the picture, it is certain that battle will start between the guards. A fight starts, but the two are expelled, which caused the tempad to be destroyed because Loki fell on it when he was thrown out. The two decided to steal the Ark while sitting together, which results in more walking afterwards. Along the road, we discover the TVA workers are simply regular folks that are taken from Earth and weren't created by the timekeepers. The two arrives in town and gets ready for the worst because the moon will collide with the planet soon. After being knocked to the ground and seeing that there's no way to save them, Loki uses his ability to stop the building from collapsing and hitting them. But it is no use. They ran out of time and are forced to watch helplessly as the Ark crumbles after being hit by a meteor. We are brought to Asgard where a young Sylvie is being taken away by the TVA and the person taking her is Ravonna. She was taken away because her existence was enough to create a branch line from the sacred timeline. Back to the present, Ravonna and Mobius are getting chewed out by the timekeepers. Sylvie and Loki are waiting for the planet to end and Sylvie tells Loki what happened to her as a child. While the TVA searches for them, Sylvie and Loki are able to create a branch line alerting the TVA. The TVA steps in to arrest them as the moon crashes into the planet, allowing the two of them to safely return to the TVA. At the TVA, Loki is put in a time loop where Sif would repeatedly punch him in the face and knee him in the balls. Meanwhile, Mobius wants to interrogate Sylvie, but Ravonna wants him to figure out what the Nexus Spike was because she thinks Sylvie is dangerous. When Mobius leaves, he visits B-15 to talk. She asks what Loki said, and he tells her that the TVA was lying to them. Loki finally breaks the cycle by being honest with her and shares his feelings. Their chat comes to an end when she tells him that he will always be alone. Loki is called in to speak with Mobius, and when he finds out that Sylvie is still alive, he chooses to cover for her. Loki argues that their interests were aligned, and it is clear that they have become close over almost dying with the planet. Loki loses patience and informs Mobius of the TVA's truth. He mentions how everyone in the TVA is a variant snatched from the timeline and begs Mobius to see through the TVA's deception. Mobius ignores it, but it is clear he is shocked by what he has heard. Mobius takes Ravonna's tempad to check if she's telling the truth when she interrogated C-20. When Mobius discovers that she was lying, his entire beliefs collapsed about the TVA. In Sylvie's holding cell, B-15 takes Sylvie to the superstore to get Sylvie to reveal the truth about herself. Here, we discover that Sylvie's projection can only be triggered by actual memories. B-15 appears to be happy as she continues to have flashbacks, and she asks Sylvie what they should do next. To destroy the TVA, Mobius decides to work with Loki, but sadly, Ravonna discovers what he's up to and erases him. Then they escort Loki to the elevator while Ravonna goes to Sylvie's holding cell to find out B-15 has been compromised by Sylvie. They escort Sylvie to where Loki is waiting and Ravonna brings them to meet the timekeepers. The timekeeper questions the two of them, but when Sylvie walks up, Ravonna loops her back to where she was before. B-15 shows up to unlock the looping device and gives Sylvie back her blade. The guards are able to take down B-15 and surround them, but they are able to take down the guards. Once Sylvie beats the guards, Ravonna joins the fight to finish the job she goofed up on in the past. Loki starts getting serious when he sees Sylvie struggling against Ravonna. Luckily, Sylvie is able to beat Ravonna and Loki finishes off the other guards. Once the fight is over, Sylvie beheads one of the timekeepers and they find out the timekeepers are androids. When Loki tried to confess to Sylvie, Ravonna erased Loki before he could finish. This angered Sylvie and she makes Ravonna tell her everything. Sylvie takes Ravonna's tempad and asks who the mastermind is of the TVA, but Ravonna doesn't know. Right before Sylvie ends Ravonna, she tells Sylvie that Loki might be alive still. She tells this to Sylvie because she wants to know who's at the top and why they lied to her. Also, when they erase someone, they are just sent to a place where they can't cause a branch timeline. Sylvie wants to know about the end of time, so Ravonna gets Miss Minutes to go through the restricted files. Once Ravonna was not useful anymore, Sylvie was going to kill her, but Miss Minute brings up a timecraft that could pass through the void. Suddenly, TVA agents rush in to arrest Sylvie, but Sylvie erases herself to go to the void. When Loki wakes up after getting erased, he is surrounded by a bunch of Loki variants. Classic Loki tells Loki that they are at the void, and Alioth will eat everything, so they better hurry to safety. Along the way, Loki wants answers and throws a fit, but Kid Loki isn't having it because the commotion could bring Alioth over. Once Loki calms down, the variant tells Loki what Alioth can do. Kid Loki leads the other variants because he killed Thor. They go to Kid Loki's kingdom to avoid Alioth. Once they arrive, they ask Loki why he wants to go back to the TVA, and Loki tells them an important thing is there. They tell their life story to each other, and Loki decides to leave to go back to Sylvie by killing Alioth. Loki tries to recruit them, but they laugh at Loki's ridiculous plan. When Loki leaves, he is surrounded by a bunch of other Lokis. The other Lokis take over the kingdom and we find out Boso Loki is the one that betrayed Kid Loki to become the new king. All the Lokis want to be king, but before they fight, Alligator Loki bites off Evil Loki's hand and they all start fighting among themselves to see who will be the new king. On the other hand, Loki, Kid Loki, Alligator Loki, and Classic Loki portal out of the kingdom to leave the fighting. After Sylvie erases herself, she wakes up in the void inside a bus. Alioth shows up to devour her, but she checks Alioth's past and runs away. Mobius shows up to save Sylvie at the perfect time and they ride off. Sylvie thinks the only way to find the mastermind is through Alioth, so they turn around to head back to Alioth. After the good Lokis escape the infighting, Loki convinced the others to help him get back to the TVA to stop them. Loki's plan is to find the weak spot and destroy it, so they watch a battleship fight with Alioth, but in the end, Alioth wipes everyone out on board. After seeing that, Loki wants to rethink a new plan because he doesn't want to be like those people. Kid Loki notices a car coming towards them, and when they stop, Loki goes towards the car because Sylvie is there. Loki introduces everyone and Sylvie plans to enchant it so it brings them to the end of time because Loki's plan was garbage. They rest for a bit while Mobius talks with the other Lokis while Sylvie and Loki gets to share a lovey-dovey moment. Sylvie hopes Loki won't betray her and Loki reassures her he's done betraying the people who loves him. Back at the TVA, Ravana meets with B-15 who is locked up to find out what drives Sylvie. We find out it's for revenge, but Ravana's real objective is to find the real mastermind. When she is done with B-15, she gets Miss Minutes to get all the files about the TVA so she can meet the mastermind. Back at the Void, they get ready to face Alioth because Sylvie believes once they enchant Alioth, it will bring them to the boss. Before the fight, Sylvie gives Loki a tempad, but Loki wants to stay with Sylvie, so he gives it to Mobius to teleport back to the TVA. Kid Loki gives Loki a blade and then they leave, but classic Loki turns back to help them. Loki offers himself as bait to get Alioth's attention, while Sylvie tries to get a hold of a branch from Alioth. When Sylvie tries to enchant Alioth, it notices Sylvie and it goes after her, so Loki tries harder to get Alioth's attention. Right before Alioth devours Sylvie, classic Loki shows up in time to cause a distraction by building an image of Asgard. Sylvie gets Loki to help enchant it, but Loki doesn't know how to do it, so she encourages him because they are the same. When Alioth is devouring the image, Loki and Sylvie gets a hold of a branch and they start enchanting it. Classic Loki starts running out of power to maintain the image and gets eaten by Alioth. Right before Alioth goes after Loki and Sylvie, they are able to enchant Alioth, who sends them to a castle at the end of time. When they reach the castle, Sylvie is about to burst in, but the door opens itself. They walk in and suddenly Miss Minutes shows up to welcome them to the Citadel at the end of time. He who remains is impressed with them getting there and offers to reinstate them back into the timeline but without disturbing things, while the TVA continues its mission. They both decline the offer and Miss Minute disappears. She reappears at the TVA to give files to Ravana and ditches right after giving it to her. When Ravana is packing, Mobius shows up to talk and maybe erase her. She calls for backup, but B-15 baits some agents to show them past Ravana before she was taken from her timeline. Back at the TVA, Mobius wants everyone to know the truth, but Ravana argues that the TVA is necessary to keep the peace. Right before Ravana leaves, Mobius tries to erase her, but he gets his ass handed to him. He surrenders and waits to be erased again, but Ravana lets him go to look for free will. At the Citadel, they walk by 4 statues with one broken. They keep exploring and a door opens with He Who Remains, also known as Kang. Kang wants to talk with them in his office and the two of them are on guard, ready to strike. Sylvie tries to attack Kang, but every time she tries, he moves to a different spot until he meets them at his office. Kang tells them it's been a long journey for them, but Sylvie tries to end Kang again. Kang tells them they can't kill him because he already knows what's going to happen next. He paved the way for them to meet him and shows them what will happen at the end. He knows they object to the TVA's mission, but without it, everything will burn. Loki asks who he is afraid of, and we find out Kang is afraid of his variants. He gives them a story of past Kang who was a scientist and how they would meet each other. Some of them were chill, but others wanted to conquer, so that's how an all-out war broke out. The first variant who found out about the different universes encountered Alioth and weaponized Alioth to end the multiversal war. Once he ended the war, he created the TVA to prevent any other branches from forming because he has gone through all the scenarios. That's why the TVA is a necessary evil to maintain the peace. Kang gives him 2 options, which are to kill him and cause another multiversal war, or control the TVA to keep the peace. He's doing this because he is old and wants to give the power to the young ones. Kang felt something off and blurted out,
"We just crossed the threshold."
Up to this point, he knows everything, but from here on out, he has no clue what will happen. Then Kang lets him decide the outcome, but Sylvie thinks he's lying. So Sylvie tries to kill Kang, but Loki stops her. She puts her blade on Loki's neck, but Loki wants to talk about it. She lets him go and goes after Kang, but Loki stops her again so they can talk it through. Sylvie thinks Loki wants the throne, but all Loki wants is to be with Sylvie. Loki thinks Sylvie can't trust people, and Loki can't be trusted, so Sylvie starts attacking Loki. They are evenly matched, but Sylvie gets the upper hand, blasting Loki back with her powers. When Sylvie walks towards Kang, Loki throws a chair at Sylvie. Loki protects Kang again and persuades Sylvie to stop. Sylvie isn't having it, so she lets Loki kill her, but he can't do it, so Sylvie teleports him away to go after Kang. Loki reappears right in front of Sylvie with her blade at his neck. That stopped her from going after Kang while Loki confesses his feelings for Sylvie. Sylvie kisses Loki and sends him back to the TVA so she can kill Kang. She kills Kang, and Kang's last word to Sylvie was,
"See you soon."
Then we see branches starting to form from the timeline. Back at the TVA, B-15 and Mobius watches the timeline branch out. Loki looks for Mobius while they were talking about the branching timelines. Loki tells him they can't stop the branches and what happened after Mobius left the void, but Mobius had no recollection of Loki. Loki looks at the statue to only see Kang there. Well, that's it for the recap of Loki Season 1. If you want Season 2, comment Sylvie. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.